Blessed love, royal family, give thanks for life and the mighty life giver, Jah Rastafari. This is the African Liberation Network, and I'm the host, the Honorable Prophet Daniel. And this is the African Liberation Network. And we are embarking on a new journey with a brother, the president. He's been on our program, the president of the UNIA in Atlanta, the Honorable Brother John Hargrove. Yes, and we are going to, do a series of programs outlining and highlighting the philosophy and opinions of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Yes, and tonight to begin the series, we're going to talk about history and the importance of history, Marcus Garvey's opinions and philosophies about history, and the different types of history that there are, so we can understand, what Marcus Garvey was really about. Because, wearing the colors of red, black, and green and associating ourselves with Marcus Garvey and calling ourselves Garveyites is becoming increasingly popular, which is a good thing, but we have to understand what it is that Marcus Garvey really stood for and really his outlook on life for Black people, so that we can really embody the principles, that would make us qualified to wave that banner and, to call ourselves after his name as Garveyites. So yes, welcome, Brother John. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, my brother. Always a pleasure to be here with you and the family.
Yes. So without further ado, we'll go right into it. If you could just, give us some understanding, some insight, as a Universal Negro Improvement Association member and president, this is your field of expertise, and that's why we have you here with us. So could you just give us some introductory, information about Marcus Garvey's outlook on history, his opinions, his philosophies and opinions on history, my brother? Give thanks.
Yes. Thank you, my brother. And again, thank you for the platform of the African Liberation Network. Always a pleasure to join you and to share some information about Garvey with the family. As you said so eloquently, a lot of our people, the title of Garveyism and Garveyite has become more popular, but we have to truly understand what that means and the responsibilities associated with those titles. Tonight, we're talking about history. And, another thing that you mentioned that was important is the type of history. And I'll touch on that later. I'll come back to that. But from Marcus Garvey's perspective, history is the foundation. When you look at the philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey, or when you look at the book that he wrote, Message to the People, Course of African Philosophy, both of these texts start with history, start by grounding the student in the importance of history. And we have developed an understanding as to why that is. And what we know now at this point is Garvey wanted us to understand the melanated man's role in history, the accomplishments, specifically the accomplishments that our people have made, to instill a sense of pride in us and to give us something to be proud of and something to aspire to. The veneration of our ancestors, the teaching of our elders and brothers and sisters like Malcolm X, of course, Marcus Garvey, even Martin Luther King, Haile Selassie. It's important for us to understand these figures, what they accomplished, and know that as a race, we have a connection. And that gives our people, especially our children, something to be proud of. And going back to the types of history, as if you haven't picked up at this point, Garvey teaches us that the most important type of history is the history of man, and as I said, specifically the history of our people. So that's the foundation. If we're going to teach or if we're going to be educated, we have to understand where we are in this eternity of time, where we come from, where our people come from, what we've had to overcome, the inventions that we've had to create due to the necessity to survive, um, the battles that we've fought and won, the land that we've claimed, the dynasties that we've created. All of these things are facts of history, facts of life, facts of world history, but it's also a sense of pride for us as individuals to know that we are the first men and women. We are God's first creation when it comes to man. We are the mothers and fathers of civilization. This gives us a sense of understanding of what is possible. As Garvey said, one of his greatest quotes, what man has done, man can do. And the only way to understand that and to apply that is to know the history of what men have done and specifically what our people have done. So I can't stress how important history is as a foundation for Garveyism. Garvey teaches us that history helps us understand where we need to go into the future. So one of Garvey's philosophies is in regards to self-reliance, and he makes an analogy of being at ship, not being at ship, but being at sea and commanding your sail as to where you want to go at sea. History is another aid that directs us as to where we want to go in the future. We shouldn't just be living this life as if we are separated from our past and our future, as if we're not connected to this eternity. So for us to understand what we must do tomorrow, we have to understand where we come from yesterday. So I don't want to overstress it, but history, if I haven't explained, is a foundation of Garveyism. It's the first thing that Garvey emphasizes in his major teachings of philosophy and opinions, as well as Message to the People, Course of African Philosophy.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that as a full answer. And can't stress enough, the importance of understanding our history as Black people, because, when we were taken away from Africa, which a lot of Black people today even say that we weren't taken away from Africa and that we were here and there and everywhere else with Indians and Moors and everything but African, but according to Marcus Mosiah Garvey, we'll go with his understanding as Garveyites. We were taken away from Africa and our history was stripped away from us, which left us kind of, identityless for, some time until, we could really retrace our steps and understand our culture when more information became more available, So it's, without understanding that, you could try to take on any identity, and then all of these different doctrines come in that confuse you and leave you still landless, and powerless and, really unanchored, So give thanks, for that, give thanks for Marcus Garvey teaching us, about the importance of history, and thanks for your explanation as well. And next, I would love for you to kind of clarify what are the different types of history that are out there that we should, well, just in general, what are the different types of history according to Marcus Mosiah Garvey?
Great question. And to summarize what you were saying earlier about us being detached from a Garvey perspective, Garvey's, one of his great quotes, people without a knowledge of the history and past is like a tree without roots.
Yes,
so, those individuals that are attempting to recreate history, they're really just trees without roots, and they're trying to find some foundation somewhere, even if it, um, relates to Europeanism, in my opinion. So that's the first thing. In regards to the types of history, uh, there's a few, and most of them honestly lead back to the history of man, because men are involved in a lot of the decision makings. So there's the history of nations, how nations come to be. You start to see that when you look deep enough into the history of nations, nations started out as families and as individuals. Um, Another type of history that I can relate to nations is biblical history. Um, Everyone knows, Garvey was a practicing Catholic, but he teaches the study of the Bible as a historical approach. And when you look at the Bible, there's a story in there about, I'm trying to get the people right, Jacob and Esau, as they were in their mother's stomach. I forgot the mother name. I believe their father was Isaac. But at that time, the Bible says that there were two nations in their mother's womb, which would tell us that nations start out as individuals that grow to families, that grow to communities, that grow power and develop trade, and they eventually become nations. But they start out from families. So the history of nations, the history of wars, how certain nations have dominance over others, the history of, obviously, the history of colonialism, how Europe got its foothold into the continent of Africa when that happened, um, history of the slave trade, as you said. That's the movement of people, the migration of people. Um, but it's a comprehensive approach. We're trying to understand, and that's part of our goal and it should be everyone's goal, is to understand the picture of this world and how it came to be what it is today, and being able to see through the lies, and the false stories, that become obvious the more and more you understand about history. But it's really a comprehensive approach to be able to put the story together as to where we are, how we got here, and what we need to do to better our situation for our children.
Thank you, brother. Sorry, I was having a little technical issue there. So biblical history, history of nations, and the history of us as a people. If I'm correct, is that a correct summary of the different types of history according to Marcus Mosiah Garvey that we should study?
From what I can remember off the top of my head, but the main thing that I know for a fact is Garvey stressed most importantly the history of man.
Okay, good, give thanks.
But he
So,
also said that he promoted the study of the Bible as well from a historical perspective. Whether we believe in the stories or not, the Garvey was one who understood propaganda, and when you look at propaganda and how it works and what it is, we as Garveyites have come to the conclusion that the Bible is one of the largest forms of propaganda in the world. Even the religion of Islam is based around biblical propaganda. So we have to understand these texts, these beliefs, these religions, even if it's not something that we practice. We have to understand how other groups, nations, and cultures um, are in the positions that they're in, whether they be good or bad.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. And okay, I'll preface this question. There's a lot of scholars out there, in the world today, especially in this day and age, with the ability to create a platform and share information. There's a lot of people who talk about history. And sometimes I wonder to what extent we should get, all right, studying history is just a piece of the puzzle, right? But knowing a bunch of history without being able to, say, solve modern day problems leaves one, intelligent and intellectual, but still in a, quagmire. As a Black person, even if, say, an individual might be doing all right for themselves, us as a people, we still are in a tough situation globally, which, as we can see, certain things are changing in Africa, especially. But I would just ask, what is the benefits, if we study history a lot and we understand where we came from and how man and civilizations and even, the Bible and understanding the Bible stories, how does it benefit us in our everyday life? How does it help us, Yeah, you have to unmute, brother.
Yes, I was taking care of something. How does that help us? Excellent question. Excellent question. And to your original point, we do have some of our scholars that have become, as some would say, armchair revolutionaries, and intellectual generals, to where they have all the information in the world, but they don't apply it. One way we get around that, excuse me, but one way we get around that is Garvey teaches us that the value of knowledge is to use it. So just having a lot of knowledge that you acquired, but is not being applied, is not Garveyism. We have to apply the knowledge that we have, the historical knowledge that we have. In regards to its benefit, as I said, one of the main things that Garvey promotes is history of man and the history of our people. The intention is to instill a level of pride and a level of confidence. Garvey says, without confidence, we are twice defeated. With confidence, we have won before the race has even started. So the historical study is to instill a level of confidence and a level of self-confidence and a level of self-belief, such that we can go out into the world and be challenged by other cultures and other races, and we can lean on the historical accomplishments of our people to give us confidence that we will succeed. So it's not always a direct benefit. Again, this is foundational information, foundational progress. But the point is, as I said, I believe the intentions are to reinstill a level of pride in a people that have been stripped of everything, a people that they've been taught, have not accomplished anything, have never done anything of significance. It's reversing that mental depression that has been imposed upon us as a people, and as I said, giving us a level of confidence that we can achieve and overcome great challenges. That would be the benefit that I would say that it provides. But again, we have to be careful not to just be armchair revolutionaries and speak, with a bullhorn from our closets. We have to be applying what we're learning, but also um, really teaching what we're learning, and getting on a social media platform and reciting facts is not a intellectual classroom. That's not a um, efficient process of transferring information to a select group of individuals that will carry that on, and help spread that knowledge in the right way. So we have to be serious about what it is that the impact that we wish to have in the world. But the foundation of history gives us a realm of potential, and it gives us a again level of confidence that we as a people have been successful with what we're trying to accomplish, but also with more difficult challenges and more difficult circumstances from the past. And if they were able to do it, as Garvey says, what man can do, what man has done, man can do. And if they can do it and they can succeed and they can overcome, why can't we come together? Why can't we fight together? Why can't we, as a people, have a successful boycott or successful fundraising campaign, Million Man March, to the polls or whatever it may be, for political power. We have examples of success, and that gives us a level of confidence that what we propose to do tomorrow, we can make successful.
All right, very clear. Yeah, and that makes sense. To study for the vain reason of being able to spout facts is not serving anyone but oneself, and even really I would question if it even serves the one. But to study with a purpose, to empower yourself, to empower your people, is really, studying history is like, say even to study the history of the UNIA, it would give you, it's like an arrow, if you pull back
Yes,
the
sir.
bow, then you have a direction where you're aiming it, as opposed to just flinging it anywhere and hitting whatever. Maybe you miss, maybe you hit, but understanding where you come from, as the African, the I think it's tree people, the in Ghana, the Sankofa, the bird looking back,
Yes, sir.
to understand where we're coming from, to know where we're going. Yes, my lord, that makes sense, and it's very clear.
Yes. And it's
Um,
interesting. It's interesting you brought up specifically the history of the UNIA, because in Marcus Garvey's Course of African Philosophy, as I said, he starts out with a significant emphasis on the importance of history. The name of the lesson is Intelligence, Education, Universal Knowledge, and How to Get It. But again, just in summary, it's talking about the study of history. But then it's a 22 lesson course. Well, it's just 22 written lessons. All the way at the end of the book, lesson 21, the very second to last lesson, the title of that lesson is The History of the UNIA. So again, just re-emphasizing the importance of these concepts. One thing I've come to learn from studying Garveyism is you have to be cognizant and aware of the things that he mentions more than one time. And history is one of those things that he would mention early on, but he would also remind you towards the end before closing out a course. So it's foundational, but it has to be practical. And as I said, I think the best way Garvey says it, the value of knowledge is to use it. We're not just, here to recite and regurgitate what we know or what has happened, but use it in a way that it will be beneficial for our people. But we also, in a regurgitation aspect, we do have to sometimes just keep those energies alive, keep those ancestors alive. So we'll say their names, say their quotes for veneration, and that's important as well.
Yes, brother. Thank you. Well, that's it for my questions, but I will allow you, as I always do, just because I know you have insight and maybe there's something that I didn't ask that you would like to share, regarding history. So I'll just give you a moment if you'd like, to a free forum where you can say whatever's on your mind, regarding the topic at hand.
Sure. I'll now that I'm at my home, at the end of the discussion, I'm more prepared. But let me, I didn't plan this, but we'll go. This is how we will go. I've got the philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey in front of me. We're on volume 1, chapter 1, page 1. The very first thing that Garvey says is history is the landmark by which we are directed into the true course of life. The history of a movement, the history of a nation, the history of a race is the guidepost of that movement's destiny, that nation's destiny, that race's destiny. What you do today that is worthwhile inspires others to act at some future time. So again, the very first words that Garvey has in Message to the People, Course of African Philosophy are specifically around history and how we can use history as a guidepost for our nation and for our race, to have beneficial progress for our future. That's what it's about. The understanding of individuals like Frederick Douglass. Well, for us as African Americans, and that's the thing. Like everyone's story and what they study from a historical standpoint is different depending on where you're from and the important Africans or melanated people in that area. If we were in Haiti, and even though we're not in Haiti, Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines should be important parts of what we teach as our history to our people as far as the accomplishments of our race. But for us as African Americans, or American Africans, as I like to say, because you put the noun first and then the verb second. So I'm an African that happens to be the American type. But my point is, for us as individuals like Frederick Douglass, Booker, which leads to Booker T. Washington, which was the inspiration for Marcus Garvey, who was a contemporary of brothers like Timothy Drew, also known as Noble Drew Ali, and really, Elijah Muhammad, I believe, joined the Nation of Islam in 1933. So this was a few years after Garvey, but understanding that lineage, Malcolm X being a part of that lineage, Minister Farrakhan obviously being a part of that lineage, Khalid Abdul Muhammad being a part of that lineage. But having an understanding of not only what you believe, and because Garvey says there's nothing new under the sun. So anything that we come up with has probably been come up with 100 times before for the past 100,000 years. So it's about understanding the connection, as I've always said, and understanding not only where your beliefs come from or the person that embodies your beliefs, but who inspired that individual, and that's where the biblical knowledge comes in, because for us as a people, that's one of the most accepted documents when it comes to the creation of man, going all the way back to the first man and woman. So we as Garveyites, we have to do our best to paint the entire picture all the way from so-called Adam and Eve to, our grandparents, our parents, and us, and our children, our grandchildren, but understanding the progress of that line, from where we came from to where we want to be. And the only way we can do that, well, the best way to do that is through history. I'll close out with a quote from one of my favorite ancestors, Malcolm X, whose parents were Garveyites. But these are things that you understand through the study of history. I believe his mother was a secretary, and I don't know if his father was a president, but he was a very well-known Garveyite. He was bringing Malcolm X up to be a Garveyite. If you study the autobiography of Malcolm X, he'll tell you that out of all of the, I believe, 7 children that his father had, Malcolm was the only one that he would take to the Garvey meetings. But one of the quotes that I know Malcolm X for, who I'm sure he got from Honorable Elijah Muhammad, is, "History is the subject best qualified and most attractive to reward all research." So we can't stress enough the importance of history. And I understand your point that some people get stuck in history, but you gotta, that's it's understandable, and it'll be more and more people as history goes along, as history becomes longer and broader, and there's becomes more and more facts to understand and learn. Some people just get lost in that, and they want to really actually try to fill all of the blank spaces. We don't necessarily feel that that's the case as Garveyites. It's a practical approach to history, and looking at history as to how it can really motivate us for the future. That's the primary purpose of it, other than truth. You want to know what's true. You want to know who your grandparents and great parents were, and that truth. But beyond that, history should be for the purpose of motivation.
Ashe. Yes, Brother John. Brother John Hargrove, the president of the UNIA in Atlanta. Thank you very much for, taking the time to be with us. We appreciate the information that you share with us. That is a very knowledgeable brother, and it's good to reason with you. We did an interview before, but this feels more like a conversation, where we're both sharing and feeding off of each other. So I greatly appreciate your presence and your time. And I look forward to, continuing to do this, because I think it's a very important thing for us to really understand who Marcus Garvey really is, how Marcus Garvey thought, why Marcus Garvey did what he did, so we can understand, studying him as a historical figure, and even his information, his teachings historically, can propel us in the right direction for the future, So, but I mean, obviously we wouldn't call ourselves after his name if we didn't think his thoughts and his teachings and his practices were worth trusting and were, trustworthy, and so we trust in him, kind of as a guide, to empower us, though, still to think, because it's not really just about leaning on, say, any one individual, but also to understand, like, if we study history, we study these different subjects, it should give us a broad enough understanding of life and ourselves to be able to think for ourselves and solve modern day problems, because there's no book that we're going to read that's going to give us every answer. We do have to actually use our own brains, Yeah, so yes, I won't talk too long, but I do appreciate it. And yeah, like I said, I look forward to the next one. And I, encourage the watchers to tune in again, when we have the brother on. So we're looking for every other Saturday at this point for us to continue lessons and principles, philosophies, and opinions of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey through the lens and perspective of a Garveyite, a UNIA president, and and a Bobo Ashanti who is also a Garveyite still. So yes, give thanks again for everyone tuning in. Thanks again, Brother John. And we're signing out. And this is the African Liberation Network. I'm the host, the Honorable Prophet Daniel, and I bid you all, guidance and protection, and strength and power in yourself. Love yourself, know yourself, study yourself historically and presently. And the future is ours if we just empower ourselves. Nobody's gonna do it for us. It's up to us. All right. So peace and love.
Peace, brother.
Peace.